Welcome to episode 24 of the Landlady Boss podcast. I'm here with my co-host and sister, Rachel. So glad we can get together and talk about this really exciting topic today, how to scale your portfolio. I think that's a question on everyone's minds. Maybe you get one or two properties or you're just getting into the game, but how can I grow? How can I make it so my portfolio will eventually replace maybe my 9-to-5 job or pay for my retirement or create that extra cash flow for you to just have that flexibility and freedom you want. So I think that this is a big question on everyone's mind, how to grow. And so we're going to be covering today how I grew my portfolio and some other strategies.
Wonderful. In fact, a lot of people who want to get that golden visa and live somewhere else in the world, you need to have a income that you're able to show, and sometimes portfolio in your real estate could do it for you. You could show that you already have income coming in from here, and so you're young, but you're retiring early with this income that comes in, and you can get your visa and live somewhere else.
That's a beautiful dream. I hope to someday do that, where you can be making cash flow while you are sleeping, income coming in, and U.S. amounts, and then living in maybe a country that's much more affordable to live or to retire. So that's one of my goals for sure. I think that brings us to our first part of growing your portfolio. I think the first step is making a plan, setting up what your goals are. Is that your goal, to completely step back from your life and live in a different country and have the money from your rental properties paying the bills? If that is your plan, then you're going to want to have a certain format or a certain structure to your real estate portfolio. If your goal is, I want to keep my job, but I'm just wanting to have, a little extra side income, okay, then that's going to affect what kind of real estate you go into. So, there's so many different types of real estate investing, the commercial, residential, short-term, mid-term, long-term, all of these different types. So it's really going to be important for you to focus and to decide what your goals are. If you don't know what your goals are, then it's going to be really hard to choose. It's like deciding what to have for dinner. Well, I'm going to go grocery shopping, but I don't even know what I'm eating yet. So how are you going to know what to get at the grocery store? You really need to know what the menu is before you start grocery shopping.
Define your goals. Let's talk about that. How do you do that?
Well, I think starting from the reverse, start from the end and work your way backwards. I think that's super helpful. Like we were saying, decide what you want your future life to be like. And if it is where you are retired early, or you're working just a couple days a week, or working remotely, or decide what you want that image to look like. Are you wanting your children to be with you traveling? Are you wanting them to be gone out of the house and then you're free? All of these things are going to matter how you decide to go forward if you know what that end point looks like. Are you wanting to just be laying on the beach? Are you wanting to be doing service work? Are you wanting to be golfing? All of these things are going to decide how you choose what to go into. If you're wanting to work, you love your job, you see yourself working till 65, 70, and you just want to have maybe a little extra supplemental income, or you want to be very hands-on in your real estate investing portfolio, all of these things are good to know now, instead of down the road saying, oh my gosh, I am being controlled by my properties and I actually didn't want to touch them, and now I am stressed and struggling and overwhelmed. So starting with that end goal and working your way backward, I think, is the best way to start.
What was your purpose for growing your business?
Well, when I started real estate investing, it was because I wanted my husband to be able to retire earlier. I wanted my family to be able to travel together, to have that freedom and flexibility. So for me, real estate investing was a means to an end, where we could be off in a different country if we want to, but still having that money coming in even while we're sleeping, and just that security of having that assets that are growing in value and working for us, so our retirement would be that much better. So that's that's how I started. And then it's kind of evolves as you do things and you kind of adjust and learn and decide if that's the avenue you want to go into. I've been doing this since 2018. And so, there's been times that I question, okay, is this really the direction I want to go? Or, sometimes this is really, really hard, or, oh my gosh, this is more hands-on than I thought it would be. So I feel like on every journey, there are ups and downs, and keeping that goal in the forefront of your mind is going to be imperative.
So you could be looking at it as the assets, like if you add up all your assets, how much it's it worth. And that could be your goal. I'd like to own such and such amount of assets. Or you could be doing it as net. What's the net I'm getting each month? Adding that all up. What is my annual net? Then that's my goal, that I'm working up towards a number. So that's a good one to choose, is which way you're going to go. And then that'll also, as you're calculating, it'll help you know that you're getting to your goal.
Exactly. And for me, having a monthly amount is what I was working towards. I had a number in my head that if I could make it to that number, then I would be free, or I would be done. And so, but as all good numbers happen, you get to that number and then you go, well, what about this next number? Oh, wait, what if? So be flexible in your plans and realize that when you start finding a system that works for you, you could grow very rapidly, and the number that you thought was what you needed could change drastically, and you could become your own worst nightmare. The golden handcuffs could come around, if you've ever heard of that. But it is good to have a number in mind for sure. And whether that's replacing your income or replacing your spouse's income, or just a number, realizing this is a number we would need to live very comfortably in Mexico, or whatever that number is, if it's 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, whatever, that helps you as you are looking at different real estate investments to see, okay, this one may be a great investment in the long run, but it doesn't have that monthly income that you're looking for, but it's more equity that's going to be building, and so it's a very long-term investment. Well, if your goal is to have that extra $2,000 a month so you could be free from your job, well then, that may not be the investment for you.
Awesome. So you get the plan.
Yeah. And I think not being afraid to diversify, be willing to look at different options. Don't say I've always done residential, so I have to only look at residential. Looking at commercial options and looking at, like we said, Airbnbs or short term, or I think it's really great to have a variety of things, because that not only is more security, because when the market changes, things happen. And if you have a variety of real estate investments, then you're a little more stable if things tank in one area.
In fact, I think we found that with COVID, a lot of people didn't want their office space as much. They were going to be now in their homes, working out of their homes. A lot of people were renting and wanted a larger space to rent. So suddenly our larger places were going for more, and our office space was not renting as fast, right? And then now you come to now, and people want their own office. They want to get out of the house, and they're looking at different things, like maybe going smaller in their house. And so if you have both office and residential, then that's great. Another thing is we, in the wintertime, we might get less Airbnbs, but we get a lot more in the summer in our area because of Yellowstone. And so what I do is I'll take some of our rentals and I'll make them Airbnbs in the summer, and then go back to a 8 or 9 month lease for the winter and spring. So anyway, that's another way that you can have a variety portfolio where you can move with the market as it changes.
I love that. So you're not just trying to do the same thing over and over. You're flexible and you adapt. So that's super important, especially coming from me. I bought an office building in January of 2020. Does that sound brilliant? No, not so brilliant. It was a great price. It needed some work. So actually, it became a good thing, because what happened was there were a lot of people, especially like my contractor and crew, that needed work during the COVID shutdown. So I had an empty office building that needed renovated that I didn't have any tenants for yet. So we actually took that time. They used it to renovate it. And then that fall, as people were starting to need out of their houses
You were
because
ready.
they were going crazy working from home, I had office suites available to rent and I was ready. So, sometimes things might seem like bad timing, but being flexible and adapting to the
Perfect.
market is key. And so it's worked out. It just
But you diversified. So now you do. You have a variety in your portfolio. So that's good. So then what's next? After you've made your plan and you know kind of what you want as your assets and what you're going to be purchasing and looking at, what's next?
Well, I think you look at different methods to make your plan a reality, and I wanted to highlight the Burr method today because that is the method that I used mostly to grow my portfolio, and it was how I was really able to scale quickly from 0 doors to just in a few years over 60 doors. So, I mean, it was a very quick growth, and I think the Burr method allows that. So let's just go over that. If you haven't heard of Burr, the Burr stands for buy, reno, rent, refinance, repeat. So it's kind of a system in real estate circles, and you may have heard of it. It's very popular, pros and cons, and people either love it or hate it, but it really worked well for me because I would buy a distressed property, I would renovate it, I would rent it out, then I would get it refinanced through the bank because now it's worth so much more, and then pull that money out and then have money to go do another project. And this is how I was able to do 8, 9, 10. I think my highest year I did 12 properties in 1 year, acquiring them, renovating them, and renting them. And so it was how I was really able to grow fast without a lot of my own money because, you're putting all this work into the property. Say you got it for $40,000, $50,000, you renovate it, put all this work into it, maybe it appraises for $150,000. You're able to pull your money out of it, you're renting it, it's cash flowing, and then you can take that money and go get another property. And at the time, in 2018, 2019, there were a lot of properties available. Interest rates were very low. So, I mean, part
Timing.
of my success is
Right.
definitely timing of the
Right.
market. That doesn't always work that way. But through this method, if you're familiar with some different methods, then when the time comes, you're able to boom, boom, boom and grow
Right.
if you have the systems in place.
The Burr, and I think that's 4 R's. The rent. So you got buy, reno, rent, refinance, repeat. Yep. Burr. That's
Ours.
great. Okay, so that's how you get them.
Exactly. And I can tell about our first property we did with this system was we had this property that we purchased. It was an estate sale kind of thing. It was I remember $47,000, and it was in a good area, walkable to downtown, because I was just getting into rental properties, so I was kind of looking in areas that I'd be interested to buy in. It needed a lot of work on the inside, but the outside was in very good shape, and so which helped the price, the reno price, in that it didn't need a roof, it didn't need windows, it didn't need new siding, but inside it needed, a new kitchen and a couple new bathrooms and painting and flooring and that kind of thing. And luckily we were able to use the floors that were there and just kind of sand and paint and use some of those things. But I didn't have a team at this time. I was just kind of getting into this. So I was, bidding out different parts of it to different contractors and trying to get a feel for who I could trust and who would do a good job and who wouldn't. And, so we were able to renovate that property. And then I'm trying to think when it was done. I mean, it was beautiful. I didn't go too nice on it because it was going to be a rental, but it just looked really pretty and
Yeah.
very desirable for tenants. We got it rented right away, and I think it appraised for $140,000, and I was able to pull 80% of that amount out, and I had
It's amazing.
$100,000 in it by the time we were done. And so you can see how now I have a cash flowing asset and I still own it, and it's still one of my favorite rentals just because of all the time and effort and work we put into it. But then I took that money, and then I remember there was a really rough house that was $30,000 that needed a ton of work, and we turned around and we bought that one, and we just went from one to the next, and it just kind of it kept going.
And that only works in Indiana when there's $30,000 houses for sale. The rest of the area starts at 300,000. Yeah, right.
Well,
Not
or
where
the
we're
whole
from.
Midwest.
Even the worst house
This is
starts
the
at like
Midwest.
150 to 200,000 where I'm from. So
Right.
you're right. So anyway, that's good.
Right. But
Yeah,
this system still works, even, I will say, even with the
right,
cost higher, the
right,
system still works. The numbers are just different. And so, as long
right.
as you're familiar with the methodology, you can use this even if the house prices are much higher, as long as you're looking
Mhm.
at the after repair values and the rental prices.
Right. And I think for finance options, we can talk about that maybe on a different podcast, but how to get financing for purchasing to get that by the Burr method. That part you do need to figure out, and right. And so we can go over that in a different podcast. But
Right.
I think for me it was I had student housing, and so most of my portfolio was managing student housing. And when I was going to live abroad, that became less of an option. And I had about 30 units of non-student housing that was, houses and apartments. But the problem is all 30 of them were for one owner. And so I knew that my entire portfolio was based on one person. And that's not a good portfolio. Anything can happen with one client. So, so I decided to go and I made a goal to do 70 doors in this last year. And so I think I'm at 68. So I got really close. And so getting probably the last four, I think we're working on this month. So I was able to do it. But my way of property managing for other people isn't the B part. It actually is the, advertising part and getting more clients. But the problem is if I want to scale my real estate business, my property management business, it doesn't work unless you're super organized with your processes, your application, your contract, how you're doing maintenance requests, your team's in place, you get a website, receipts, you have everything, all your systems in place. And this is you with your rentals. So I think we actually combine together at that point where as you're purchasing, I'm picking up clients. But the point that we come together is where you're running these properties and you cannot grow if it's chaotic with just when you're small. If you're losing papers, if you don't have it digitalized, if they can't pay online, you actually can't grow. So to scale your real estate portfolio and to have properties that are your rentals, you need to make sure you have it all set up in place. And we do have our classes that we put together, and that's exciting that you can actually purchase and you can find out how to create your business and how to get your team in place and how to do all of these things. But what's really important is if you don't have those in place, it's going to be chaotic. So regardless if they own them or if you're just managing for somebody else, you need to make sure you have a property management business in place.
Exactly, because you only have so much bandwidth. And I know I reached this point 2 or 3 years ago where I was wearing all the hats and doing too many things, and I was at a cap because I only could do so much on my own. And I was running around, I'm doing all of these different things and didn't have all the systems in place to make it so I would have the time and energy to go out and be able to look at new deals, be analyzing things, be growing. Because if you're stuck in the day-to-day operations and you don't have the time or energy to really have that eagle eye view and to grow. And so that's when I went, oh, I have to
Yeah.
build a team. I have to systemize this. I have to get this like a business. And that's why we try so hard to put in our courses to
Yeah.
teach others how to do this, because my fear, as I've mentioned before, is that people will get overwhelmed and they'll get that just exhaustion and they'll quit. Or they'll say, I'm just going to
Mm-hmm.
sell it. I'm so tired of it, which you hear all the time, the
Yes.
exhausted landlord or landlady syndrome,
Yeah.
where they just are done. They're tired. They're tired of going and picking up the rent. They're tired of getting the calls for all the leaky faucets and
Yeah.
not having the people to go fix anything. It's
Right.
just, it can really wear you out. And so having the proper foundation, the business entities, having the systems in place, these are all going to be so critical in helping
Mm-hmm.
you have that investor mindset, that growth mindset, because it really, you have to have kind of that business mindset. Where am I going with this, so that you can grow? Otherwise, if you're there painting and laying flooring and doing all of the jobs, There's just not enough hours.
Right. And if you're carrying all of your paperwork to your accountant in a box, you've got problems. It's just if you're accepting rent checks and cashing them into your checking account
Right.
and then trying to write bills out of it and figure out what you're doing, like there's problems. So we want you to be able to have a business and a business mentality so that you're able to have multiple properties and add properties to your portfolio without it swamping you. Exactly. Right. So, I mean, that's what we're about is helping you get to that spot so that you can go from, oh, you have two, well, great. Now you can have 25 and why not, you know? This is really when you start being able to do a similar amount of work but have a lot more income.
Right, because you're already doing the work. And so that's something we really are focusing on this week on our social media platforms, are the tips and advice on how to systemize things so that you're doing the same amount of work, whether it's for 1 or 2 properties or 10 to 12 or 20. I always say 20 properties is easier than 1 or 2 properties because it
To
forces
be
you
organized.
have the volume, it forces you to
Yeah.
systemize. When you're at 1 or 2, you don't quite have to be as organized. It's like training for a marathon. You know, people say, oh, I'll just do a 5K. In my mind, that's not scary enough to really make you come up with like a training program or like a plan. It's like, I can walk 3 miles, it'll be fine. But when you have like, I've got to run 13 miles,
Yeah.
26 miles, that volume, that number is big enough that you go, okay, I'm going to really have to train or
Right.
buckle down or come up with a system or else I'm going to die. So that's what in real estate investing, the same kind of thing for
Yeah.
you to have that kind of numbers, the growth, or whether it's hundreds
Right.
of, you're going to have to systemize or you're not going to get there. And so that's why don't be afraid of getting professional help at some point in your real estate investing journey, whether that is through courses or coaching or just having a professional mentor, someone that is going to help you not
Hmm.
only have the mindset, but the
Yeah.
systems so you can grow because you're only one person. And if you're like us, I think busy landladies, we do all the things and we like to wear all the
Yeah.
hats and we work, 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 work. And
Right.
you got to work smarter, not harder for sure. So making sure that you are systemizing it, analyzing it, realizing the areas that you need to bring on people. That was when I was really able to grow and grow quickly, was
Right.
when I wasn't buried in the paperwork, doing all of the invoicing and the rent collecting and hounding the maintenance technician, all these things that were taking so much of my time. And then I would have this network that I had built out, which is part of the growing process, is find that network and group, people that know you're looking and bring you deals. But I'd have
Right.
realtors call me because I had been networking, right? They'd call
Yeah.
me and say, hey, I've got this property I think you're really interested in. I don't even have the time or
Right.
energy to go
Right.
look at it. Okay, well then it's gone, right? The deals are going to be gone if you're
Hmm.
not out there hustling, if you're not able to be more of the administrative role and finding those deals, someone else is going to find them. So start thinking like a real estate investor. If you're not, think, okay, I have to be able to see the bigger picture here. I have to be able to
What can I
scale this
delegate?
portfolio, which means what can
Yeah.
I hand off, as we've talked in previous episodes. What can I delegate? What can I say no to, which is a yes for something else to make it so I can focus on my portfolio? Because it has to be a focus. Your goals at the beginning that we talked about, that plan, it has to
Right.
be something you really are focused
Idea.
on.
Right. Or it won't happen.
Right. I mean, it would be really nice to just, be on a beach and do, but like you really need to find what that why
Yeah.
is and focus on that. Is that more time with your family? Is that more time to do hobbies or service or charitable things that really are your passion, or focusing on, environmental issues, or coming up with your community involvement, different things, whatever your passion is, that has to drive you. It has to be a strong force or else you will quit. So find whatever it is that drive is. For me, it was that time with my family, time that I can't get back, that I could be with my children and traveling and making memories and doing all of these things. And I wanted my husband part of that too, because we kind of like him. So
Nice.
we wanted
I
him
love
there.
it. Well, this is all really good stuff. I think that our listeners, if not now, at least they can put this in their brain and think about, okay, I can scale. I can do this because it really is a possible thing to do if you create that goal, diversify your portfolio, buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat.
Yep. And that's the method that I use. There's other options that you could do. There's other financing options that we can get into a different podcast because
Always.
obviously money is a huge barrier or option. Like how do I need the money to grow, so that is a big hurdle but not unattainable. So something that we'll discuss further is financing options, but just making sure that you are networking, that you are putting out feelers to people so they know what you're doing, and so you are building your team out. Even if you're like, hey, I don't even know how I can grow right now, work on those relationships, whether it's from other realtors that can feed you deals, wholesalers, contractors. There are so many areas that you could be building relationships, bank, financial brokers, like people that are
Yeah,
going to be working with you to get money. So don't stop just because you don't know how to grow. Find ways to build out that
perfect.
team that can support you where you are.
It's been inspiring.
Thank you. It's been a
Yeah.
wonderful journey, and it's been exciting. So if you have found this helpful, which I hope it is, we do this podcast not because we're bored, but because we want to help other landlady bosses reach their goals and dreams. So if it's helpful, please subscribe and share so we can help others. And if you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you, maybe topic ideas that you'd love for us to discuss. Email us at landladybosses@gmail.com. And any courses that we've mentioned are on our website, landladyboss.com. And we also have a free tenant checklist that you could get, a damage inspection report that could help you in your check-in and check-outs. If you go to landladyboss.com, you can also download that. So lots to do, and you can also check us out on our Instagram and Facebook account for more tips and advice. So happy renting, and remember, no one can manage your properties as well as you.